artificial intelligence will completely transform our world. But what is AI? Why will it affect you? And how can you and your business survive and thrive through the AI revolution? Welcome to AI and You. Here is your host, author, speaker, and futurist, Peter Scott.
Hi, this is episode 277. I'm talking with Professor Michael Gerlich, the head of Center for Strategic Corporate Foresight and Sustainability at SBS Business School, about AI's effects on critical thinking, especially in students. His research and publications largely focus on the societal impact of artificial intelligence, and he garnered a great deal of attention with his paper titled AI Tools in Society, Impacts on Cognitive Offloading and the Future of Critical Thinking, published in the peer-reviewed journal Societies. We've been talking about that and another paper Michael has in the works, and what both of them have to say about cognitive offloading and the use of Gen AI. Michael has also taught at Cambridge, the London School of Economics and Political Science, and other institutions. Last week we talked about cognitive offloading and the use of Gen AI, how AI, like the big agents that might come with workplace IT systems, help or hinder in knowledge work, and consequences for on-the-job training. This week we're going to talk about whether or how we can tell that our cognition has been impaired, how the future of work will change with cognitive offloading, and what employers need to beware of and leverage. So let's get back into the interview with Michael Gerlich. We know that AI by itself is not as good as humans. If it were, then we would just sit back and go into a Wall-E future and the AI would do everything that we can. You have said that it produces mediocrity. So in some cases, mediocre might be good enough, and that's what the employers are focusing on, because mediocre that costs 1% of what a human does might be perfectly good enough for them. But to focus on those things where we want more than mediocre, how can we define this interface between people and AI to create a productive relationship? I know that's the $64 million question, but break it down however you want.
Yeah. I'm always saying it starts already making sure that you don't have the cognitive offloading, right? The problem is if you have, as well as an organization or the individual that uses Gen AI, if you tell it, do the work for me, then you're already pretty much out of business. You yourself, because when AI does your job and nobody pays you the salary to be at the beach and enjoy your margaritas, and for the companies as well, that what we were just describing, you will then very quickly replace, in, let's say, the entry level people, and they can no longer further develop. Now, what we have to do is we have to define how shall a cooperation between AI and humans work. We should analyze what are the capacities, what are the possibilities of our employees that makes them unique against a technology solution. And most don't do that. Currently, we only focus on what can AI do more instead of asking what shall it do and what shall the humans do? What is the added part of humans? For me, currently still, this is the whole thinking process. This is the whole, that the thinking process should be managed by the human, because this is where that kind of creativity comes in. I'm not talking about arts creativity. I'm talking about solution creativity that AI currently does not offer us. And if we are not defining that, and if we're not focusing on that, and if we're not training our employees and young people on that, then we actually work on full replacement. And then there is no cooperation anymore. But as well, as I said, we would end up at a very efficient but not further developing level in industries, in organizations generally, because there are no more the humans that have that chaotic thinking, that creative solution-finding thinking that is being needed.
Right. But as you say, that is needed. Now, the problem seems to be, how do we recognize when what we're getting from AI or AI plus human looks good because AI is very good at making things look fantastic, but is not as good for us, the enterprise, as what we could have gotten with humans with critical thinking skills and human creativity. If we can tell that we have been denied that and that it would have advantaged us, then we can do something different. We can recognize that. But is there the trap that we just won't see that and everything will become mediocre, again, invoking the Wall-E future as the destination of this, that we won't realize that we could have done better?
Yeah, this unfortunately is as well some kind of, I don't want to say policy, that's wrong, but there is a strong push from the industry. Remember, it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. So whatever you hear, whether it's on social media, in general media, wherever it is, everybody talks about the definite positive results that we achieve with AI in some areas, in the medical field, in different ways. This is not even the question, right? But at the same time, we are not really discussing those points that we two are now discussing, and companies don't do that. So we will come to a point where there will be this awakening where it's, oh, sorry for my bad French, shit, we didn't expect that, right? But at that point, it's too late. When you already have replaced most of your workforce and it is being done by AI. And then the problem is pretty much that at what point do I realize that I'm not further developing? Because currently we are in our society pretty much focusing on efficiency everywhere. This was as well why we ended up in the problems when we had the tanker in the Suez Canal blocking the ships, that our supply chains were pretty much so optimized that we didn't get our products anymore, right? Because everything was focused on efficiency. Let's have it cheaper, more efficient. And once we do that with AI, a lot of things you cannot really rework anymore, right? Then you have the problem. And at one point, we might realize it or we won't realize it. I don't know. Some companies might realize and will try maybe to revert the process. Whether they can do it or not, we will see. But a lot will not really realize it because it will be efficient, it will be cheaper, and they will have outcome. And for most companies, that's at the end, it's a shareholder value, right? It's the returns that you get, and they will definitely increase. And the societal problem that we have with unemployment and people being unhappy and all that, that will then be pushed back to the governments, and the corporations will not have to take care of that. So that's a really big problem, and we are slowly sliding into it. It would be okay for me if we would be all aware that all participants are aware what's happening, from the enterprises to the government and the individual. Unfortunately, most of the participants are not aware what's happening. And like I said, if all those employees that use Gen AI at the workplace and have their cognitive offloading are just telling AI, do it, and then present it to their boss, if they would be aware at what risk they currently are, they probably might not do that. They might rethink it. But we are not discussing that. Nobody discusses that. Everybody pushes for use it more. Go and use it. It can do the job for you. And then people are saying it frees up and you will have more free time. I mean, in what universe are people living if they believe that your employer gives you the free time then, right? So they say, okay, you can now do the work that you did in 1 week, you can do in 1 day. And now 4 days you can go to the beach and have your margaritas. That's not going to happen.
Right. They will expect 5 times as much work. So the business owners listening to this will be thinking that they could get a competitive advantage over their peers if they learn how to use humans effectively, because then they would avoid the mediocrity trap. The enlightened ones would, but as you point out, the short-term gain appeal is one that would lead people to pursue AI at all costs until it might be too late or take a really long time to undo what they have done. But for the ones that realize that AI plus human is going to give you a better result if you do it right, as you said before, then they're going to be really focused on this question of, well, what is the way to get it all. They will want the efficiency and the critical thinking and creativity. And where do we look to create that? Is that something that has to take place in the school? Is that something that we won't get if schools are graduating or not teaching the right way, and that it's too late for the employer to get that?
Well, I think it has to be done all over, on all levels of society. And that starts in schools, but it's not something that you can just push over and say it is up to education, because that would only be the next generations. It's already the people that you have in the workforce. It's everyone in society. And that's the problem what we have. We saw as well in our study that when we were even asking managers when it comes to use of Gen AI and cognitive offloading, and they said, well, it is so tempting if Gen AI produces an acceptable result, it's very tempting to offload, right? Even managers. And this is what's happening in companies as well. They're not even aware that the result is going to be the mediocrity. They would react actually probably totally different, because no company currently, because we can see that as well, that there were not enough studies out there. Everyone is just pushing and believing, especially in industries as well, the level of knowledge of use, how to use AI and what really AI will bring is always focused on the technology side. No one really looks on the human side. Everyone believes that if I use AI, I have to analyze how can I integrate it best into my organization. That's a technological question for them. Now, no one currently thinks about the human, and this is where the big surprise is going to be. I'm not saying that all entrepreneurs and all corporations only want to get rid of all employees. No, obviously not. They are happy to have the efficiency, cheaper solutions, faster solutions, but further development with critical thinking employees. But currently, nobody discusses that. Currently, and this is what the big problem is, whether we are on government level, whether we are at universities, whether we are in schools, it's only about we should use it. Train people to use it. Just use it, right? So everybody has to use it, and then you are good. But the promotion of usage is the cognitive offloading. It's let it think for you, let it do the job for you. And that will not really result into better outputs. That will, like I said, will definitely lead to more efficiency, cost reduction, no question at all. And that is exponential, but it will be limited. And not every company, like I said, there are companies that actually have now regulations that the use of AI cannot lead to replacement. So they are still on a level where they say, for us, our employees are more important. Depends always when the pressure comes from the industry and the competitors don't have the same rules, then they might be forced to do the same thing. But currently still, like I said, not everybody is just looking for only the financial gains, but no one discusses that. And that's why we too talk about that as well, because there should be awareness of this. There shouldn't be that in 5 years or in 7 years, corporations wake up and say, oh my God, well, this didn't really work well. What's then going to happen, right? Like we were saying, you don't have no more junior expert that could grow into senior experts. Your senior experts retire, then actually your knowledge is gone. So this can become a really big industry problem, societal problem, and for individuals if we are not addressing that correctly. And it's not a doomsday scenario. It is just that people should be aware of it. But currently, no one has an interest in making people aware of it. In the US, for example, there's this huge push to use AI in schools, right? Just use it, go use it. And then even educators say, but we don't even know how to use it and what to use it. It's just, oh, let's give us a solution. There's this push for it, right? Governments want to be that their AI developers are leading in the world, and they give them all the opportunity, less regulation or as little regulation as possible. So there is no interest to really critically discuss how to do it properly. And then there is the individual, where we talk about the convenience trap, that we're all looking for the convenience, right? And if it gives me a fast solution and I don't have to think about it, then let me use it. And this all together can create a really big problem, and especially for your audience, which you're saying is in the education sector, because they are losing their chance. Because not only don't they develop the critical thinking, but their entry jobs are gone as well. So have we ever thought about what's going to happen with those young people now 4 and 5 years? Yes, I have there some colleagues in the world who are saying, oh, there are going to be trillions of jobs being created thanks to AI. Well, that's not very likely, right? Because as we said, it's the first time that we have something that can actually do everything that humans did. This was all the thinking part, plus the combination of currently accelerating robotics development that we have there, especially when it comes to humanoid robots. Then you actually take pretty much the last area where the humans were working. So I don't really see where all those billions of jobs are going to come that AI is currently replacing, but creating then as well, which is rather unlikely because currently all that AI does is being created to replace and not to be an instrument. But it should be an instrument, and there I agree.
There are so many race to the bottom dynamics going on here. I'm reminded of a discussion that we had with Dagan Shani a few episodes ago about Moloch, which is the personification of that race to the bottom dynamic among people. I want to look at this through an evolutionary lens, because so many of us are bumping up against the limitation of this thing on the top of our necks. If you look at the rate of publication of peer-reviewed papers, for instance, which is going exponential, and in so many fields, there isn't time for anyone to read everything published in their field and do research as well. So cognitive offloading, something has to happen for there to be progress. Otherwise, by the time you've absorbed everything you need to know about your field, your career is over. There's got to be a way that we can do this. If we had stuck with the old things that we used to have to know, I call this when people make the desert island argument. What if you're stranded on a desert island? Then you're really going to need to know how all these things. And then I say, well, okay, then why aren't you teaching how to make dugout canoes and coconut underwear in schools? You're not acknowledging that there are some things that we leave behind. Not as much of the population now knows nor needs to know how to make their own shoes or plow a field. So we have to do some kind of cognitive offloading to be able to continue making progress. Or maybe cognitive offloading isn't the right term here, but we've got to offload something.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems is when you look at the speed of change that happened, when we look around 1900, change would have happened every 100 years, right? I mean, information would have doubled by 100 years. If you look on the curve, it went pretty much from 2000 and 2010, and then became exponential. Problem is that humans are now being outpaced by technology. And we cannot really keep up with it anymore. Now, the problem is, and this is where comes the replacement of humans through technology, what role will the human play? I agree with you. There are so many publications out there. Problem is, and this is where we have studies on it as well already, if you let ChatGPT or any of the Gen AI get you summaries of the publications, most of them are wrong. They have a wrong interpretation. They don't get some core things. It is not yet there. Now, if we already trust it at this point, and then I don't even want to start discussing that Gen AI is being influenced as well by the materials it's being trained. So you can easily influence as well a large language model by training it in a very specific way. You can actually have an impact on the outcome as well, the way it's going to analyze things. But just purely currently using Gen AI in research when it goes to literature reviews or something like that, like you said, right? Because the field is so huge, very tricky, very difficult. Because we would not, first of all, you currently don't really get the full picture. There are too many mistakes in it. I agree with you. It should become a tool. And it should become a tool as we have other tools before. We use databases, and then we have algorithms that can analyze databases. And this is all fine. And AI can play a role there. We just have to be careful that we still stay in control of the thinking process. This is very important, right? If we trust the AI to the point, we don't trust the database because it's just data. We think for it. The problem is if it thinks for you. I'm not against, totally, I'm pro AI. People should use it just in the right way. And it should be a tool. It should be the evolution of your database, your algorithms, the software that you had. But you have to be careful that you don't get impressed in a way that you let the thinking do for you. And we didn't do that. And if we do that in research, I always test it. It makes so many mistakes. It cannot get really the big voices out there. That's why we have literature reviews that are being published. Let's say we have a Spring in Nature publication, a journal, and they do as well literature reviews, right? So you will have someone who looks at a specific topic or a group of topics. Who are the voices? How are they interconnected? What is evolving around that? And that you can use, right? If you let AI do this fully, at the current stage, it would be chaos. It's still hallucinating. You would not really get the big voices. Everything would be reduced probably to 2-3 names, and that's it. It does not really have the variety. Yes, we still need in research the time to read. We need the time to think. We need the time to analyze all that. But we come to our limits. We are being outpaced by our fast society. Yes, I agree with you. You're not able to read anything. I can't even catch up anymore with what's happening in AI. And this is pretty much my major job to do that. But every day there's something new coming up. I agree with you. But this is then the question, again, what is the role of a human in the process? If we are not fast enough anymore, are we going to do it? Or are we just saying, okay, you're Wall-E, right? Are we going to lay back and just let AI do that? But we are not prepared as a society for this either, because our societal systems are not ready to really finance everyone and let AI do all the work and thinking.
No easy answers here. I want to just raise a couple of minor technical questions about follow-on work here. Well, they may be minor. The results of your study, or the data in your study, was self-reported by the participants. Is it possible that the use of AI itself caused a self-reporting bias?
Well, first of all, self-reported is always critical, because normally self-reported leads normally that people try to leave a better impression than what the reality is. And this is why normally we have to consider that the real results are a lot worse, because people normally don't try to present themselves in a bad light. So this was as well surprising, because the self-report was pretty honest on the negative side. That's very unusual. That's definitely. But in sociology, self-reported results are always there. This is why we have why we use mixed methods and not just the self-reported. We're not just going on that. This is why we have as well the interviews. We look and we have different methodologies to analyze it. And then and that was really good. And I was highly impressed and so happy that we had like a month ago, the MIT study coming out, which was pretty much, they were measuring brain waves with the use of Gen AI when writing an essay and without. And they could see that, I think it was 42 or 43% less brain activities when using Gen AI. So this is not self-reported now. This is medically analyzed. And I'm happy that this came studies like that as well. But self-reported is very common, but it has its downsides as well. And this is, for example, when you interview people as well, we have that in marketing and you ask them about whatever products they are using. Most of the time, they would either purposefully lie to you or subconsciously give you wrong answers, right? Because they are always trying to leave a better impression there. But that would mean that the real results are even worse than what we had, right? Because a lot of people already said that it's very tempting and it's very convenient, and that they realize that when they use Gen AI that they don't think themselves anymore, which are honest answers, not difficult. We are trying as well, and we use them by the methodology, by helping, where we were trying to use those questions that identify the critical thinking process rather than just saying, do you think critically or not? But I agree with you. So self-reported always has its downsides. But after that, more studies came out that were supporting the results as well.
And you quote participants saying things like, I sometimes wonder if AI is subtly nudging me towards decisions I wouldn't normally make. And that's an unusually self-aware kind of statement for people in general to make. So that shows the honesty that you were talking about. The other thing I wanted to ask about follow-on work was to start with asking about cultural effects and whether you measured the cultures of the participants in this study and what the potential is for doing studies that are culture aware and track differences in that.
Well, that study we didn't, obviously, because it was only related to the UK. The follow-up study that we did was Germany, Switzerland, and the UK. So we're already trying to see whether there are differences. But when it comes to cognitive offloading, that's a human thing. It's not a cultural thing, right? That's why we do not really think the use of AI is a huge cultural issue. That's not even a question. And we could have at least another 1 or 2 hours discussing that, why the large language models that we currently use, which are based on pretty much white Western opinions that have been trained, might not be very useful for different cultures, let's say, for example, on the African continent, because they have different perspectives and all that. I mean, let's not even start there. But when it comes to the convenience trap, when it comes to the cognitive offloading, when it comes to that the brain has the anchoring bias, right? This is something that relates to humans. It's not a cultural thing. So we would not expect that someone, let's say in Africa, who uses ChatGPT would not have the cognitive offloading, but would probably use the same question, because that comes by the experience of Google use. When we use Google, we were putting the question right away in, and then we got a result where we still had to think very critically, because out of 1 million documents that you got, you had to find somehow your result. You never really got the real answer. So culturally, when it goes to critical thinking, cognitive offloading, we have not studied that. And we would probably not really go deep into it. We try now with 3 countries to see whether there are differences. And we could not really see big differences. There were minor ones, especially for Switzerland compared to the UK. So it depends on the level of AI use in a society, obviously, right? But the tendency of how to use it seems to be not a big difference by different cultures.
I think the possibility I was thinking of was not that cognitive offloading might lead to different effects in different cultures, but that cognitive offloading might occur less in some cultures that might be further away from the, as you say, white Western tilt of AI, such that they don't relate to it in the same way that people who are white Western do.
Well,
we have reached the end of our time here. Can you tell our listeners more about your, well, we have so much more that we could talk about. You've hinted at the work, for instance, you were doing with AI for developing countries, but perhaps you can just close by telling us where people can find out more about the work you are doing and what's coming up next.
Wow. The work that I'm doing, well, first of all, you can definitely have a look in the internet, as well as the Center for Strategic Corporate Foresight and Sustainability, or find me on LinkedIn, or all the studies that I have done or that we do around AI, you can find easily as well in Google Scholar or ResearchGate or wherever you do your research. What's coming up next? Well, I still, as one of the points, is I see a strong correlation as well to the use of social media, because the way that social media is being used is not really, how to say, encouraging critical thinking. So to see that it might have as well a correlation effect on the cognitive offloading critical thinking, especially when it comes to long use of social media. We want to combine that because, as we said, there is a correlation to the use of Gen AI and a strong correlation. It's not causality, but there might be as well a correlation when it comes to the use of social media. So we would like to analyze that. And well, hopefully, I'm not just a researcher. We consult companies, corporations as well when it comes to the implementation of AI, but only on the human factor, not on the technology, because that's an IT thing and there are enough specialists there. And as well, talking with governments on how to consider the impact that AI has on society, as well as education organizations like Ministry of Educations or governments when it comes to educating students in schools as well at university, what the impact AI has and what would be the best use. But that is a huge work, I can tell you, Peter.
Oh, I completely understand. We will have links in the show notes and transcript. Michael Gerlich, thank you for coming on the show. You are at ground zero of what may be the most important issue of our time, how we relate to, use, and co-evolve with this thing called AI in a way that serves our development. And clearly we have so much more to find out that I hope we can talk about this more when we have found out more.
Thank you so much, Peter. It was a pleasure talking to you. You have an amazing show, and let's see. Hopefully we stay in contact and we have a positive impact.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
And that's the end of the interview. We were visiting, again, that disturbing possibility that using AI the wrong way could take something away from us without our realizing it, or without there being a critical mass to put it back. Nowhere is it more important to find out the truth of that than in our schools. But thank goodness people like Michael are already on the case. In today's news, ripped from the headlines about AI, the first research paper out of Mira Murati's startup Thinking Machines Lab tackles the issue of irreproducibility of chatbot results, titled Defeating Non-Determinism in LLM Inference. It reveals that the reason why you can get two different answers to the same question from the same model, even when the internal temperature parameter, which is how much randomization will it apply to constructing the answers, is 0, is the lack of something called batch invariance. This means that when multiple requests are submitted simultaneously to the same model, even though they're theoretically independent, they affect each other through subtle effects on the matrix multiplication component. In other words, the busier the server is, the more your results may vary. Weird. And depressing that something so subtle could arise and cause such a significant effect. But on the other hand, great news that someone has figured it out. That team being led by Horace He at Thinking Machines, because now it's possible to do something about it, at least when you want repeatability. Next week, my guest will be Becky Keane, author of AI Optimism, a guide to redefining artificial intelligence in education. That's next week on AI and You. Until then, remember, no matter how much computers learn how to do, it's how we come together as humans that matters.
That's all for this episode of AI and You. Please leave a rating and comment and share with your friends. Get the book Artificial Intelligence and You and see more videos and articles at aiandyou.net. That's aiandyou.net, where you can also send us your questions. Thank you for listening.